We want to start here, Rania, with a story we've been covering consistently, as we should be, because it's one of the biggest stories on the planet Earth, although it's not covered that way, and that is the ongoing conflict in the eastern part of the Democratic Republic of Congo, which has been taking a lot of different turns recently. And we are very, very honored to be joined here on the show once again by Kambale Musavuli, who is an analyst with the Center for Research on Congo-Kinshasa. As always, Kambale, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for keeping the story alive.
Well, doing the best we can. A lot of different threads here. I mean, we've had the announcement, I think it was today's the 13th, that the troops from SADC, the Southern African Development Community, are at least allegedly going to be withdrawing. There's also the announcement that came from the president of Angola that Felix Tshisekedi will be negotiating directly, it seems, with M23, with Angola as the mediator. A lot of things I guess we could say about all of this, Kambale, but it seems that many of these pieces that Mr. Tshisekedi has been perhaps outmaneuvered by other forces, because these are many things that he said would never happen and that he would never do. But of course, we've seen M23 backed by Rwanda make significant military gains over the past 2 weeks.
I mean, the actions of the administration of Tshisekedi clearly shows that they lack strategy as one, and two, they lack credibility from the people. Even though we know that the SADC forces are going to leave, we know that Angola is even pushing for direct negotiation with the M23 in Rwanda. One thing that's even much more worrisome is the attempt by the Congolese government or some Congolese officials to get closer to the United States to give away control of Congo's mineral resources. So if you look at it from the perspective, clearly you see that they are out of ideas of what to actually do. But if you compare it not to what's happening in the Sahel, right? The people of the Sahel, when you think about Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, they rely on the people in the country, right? So the question will become, what is the plan of the Tshisekedi regime for the people of the Congo? What are the consultations being made with the people of the Congo about all these decisions that's being made, right? Where do they fall in all the strategies? So if you put it that way, then the conflict becomes very clear that the people of the Congo since 1885 to present have not been at the table to decide the affairs of the Congo. The elite of the country have always engaged. If you go back to even before 1885, we speak about slavery. When we had the Kingdom of the Congo, the relationship between the Kingdom of the Congo and Portugal that ended up in slavery of the people, it was the elite of the country collaborated with Western nations for that. That same framework is still happening today. I do believe that the Congolese government is going to be pushed to negotiate, but it's not going to end the fundamental problem that has caused the millions of deaths in the Congo. And the fundamental problem that we have is that Congo is endowed with so much mineral wealth, right? That is essential to the fourth industrial revolution. Without Congo's minerals, you can't even discuss, be it having a drone in the air, be it even using AI models, right? And that wealth, that mineral wealth, is right mostly in the east and the south of the Congo. And as Mao said, whoever controls the world, whoever controls the Congo controls the world. That is actually what's happening. How do we gain control of this wealth? How do we get it at a very cheap cost? Who do we use on the African continent as a conduit for the mineral? In the east, Rwanda and Uganda have been used for the pilfer of Congo's resources. And as we're looking at the Congolese government, they are willing to literally give away the future of the Congo to the United States to give the US access to critical minerals as the US vows to fight China's presence on the African continent.
Well, I'm glad you raised the issue of China, because in some of the news reporting on this potential mineral deal that you were just referencing, especially in mainstream Western outlets, it's been framed in the context of, oh, this is a way for the U.S. to push back against China and Africa. And you even have this lobbying group that calls itself the Africa USA Business Council that actually wrote to Secretary of State Marco Rubio on behalf of a Congolese senator, just talking about a possible deal and framing it specifically as something that could be, I'm going to quote from it, a widening strategic China's dominating a widening strategic gap where adversarial nations continue to monopolize Africa's resources. So this is obviously like some capitalistic lobbying group. I don't know if you want to talk a bit more about what that means, but the point is this is a bunch of people who want to make money selling off African resources, trying to use this Cold War with China and others like Russia to sort of lure, I guess, the Trump administration into coming into the Congo, if I guess the U.S., is probably already involved in Congo, I imagine. Anyways, I'm curious if you can talk about that sort of China-U.S. war aspect to this, and if that might play a role in what we might see happen between the U.S. and Congo moving forward.
Let's be very clear. The United States has been engaged in the Congo since 1885. They even engage right now. American companies are involved in the extraction. Companies traded at the New York Stock Exchange, even the Toronto Stock Exchange, are operating in the DRC. So it's not that this deal is something magical that's now going to bring U.S. Strategic mineral interest in the DRC. They're already operating, right? But we have to think about what is actually unfolding. The Tshisekedi regime is acting with desperation. And I believe that they've asked many people within the Congolese government to do whatever they can to come up with ideas of how to bring the attention of Western nations around this conflict, supposing that the US is not involved when AFRICOM is operating in Congo, is operating in Rwanda, is operating in Uganda, the military forces of the US is in the region. So Senator Pierre Kambale hired a lobby firm in Washington that counsel, the US-Africa Business Council and so on. And I don't know how much they pay them, of course, because of US law, they have to disclose what they're doing on behalf of an official in the outside of the United States. So in the filing, we are able to see the letters that's been sent out, right? So this lobby firm on behalf of this senator, that's exactly what they're even saying on the bottom of the letter, right? That on behalf of the Congolese senator, I send a letter to Marco Rubio, I send a letter to members of Congress in the Critical Minerals Working Group, and many different US officials saying that Congo is ready to give access to critical minerals. And we are talking about lithium, we're talking about coltan, we're talking about cobalt, in exchange for US military support, strategic support, where we will have US military bases officially in DRC, even though they are already operating there through Congolese military bases. Now, they want them to have the military base in the Congo, but also providing them with a project of developing the Banana Port, which is a deepwater sea port that the Congolese government has been trying to build with UAE support as well, right? And guaranteeing that American companies will have preferential access to Congo's minerals, and they will be able to ship it out. Is this a new idea? Is it already happening? We know it's already happening through the Lobito corridor, right? The US has put billions of dollars to make sure that the railroads leaving the southern part of Congo go through Zambia all the way to Angola in the Lobito port, taking Congo's copper, taking Congo's cobalt. That's already unfolding. So they are presenting it in a way where the elite of the Congo, they're saying, well, we can even give you a better deal, right? And get access to that. Now, there are some problems with that. That's why in the beginning I started explaining how is it that a senator of the Congo can go and speak to a lobby firm without consultation in the parliament. There hasn't been discussion within Congolese parliament about giving away our resources. What gives him the power to give away the resources of the country on behalf of the Congolese government when he's only a senator without any discussion? And that has been the framework of Congo since 1885. The Congolese people are not consulted around those decisions. And from what I'm seeing so far for the past week is that the United States government is actually interested in this deal. And there are some discussion that is ongoing, which if it's concluded and that this deal is happening, it will be the same thing, that the Congolese people are not involved in the decision-making process when the elites are actually doing this to protect their interests. And I believe, even in the context of the conflict, that's where I say it's quite dialectical what is happening in DRC. On one hand, we have Congo's neighbors attacking the Congolese people, causing the millions of deaths. On the other hand, we actually have the elite of the Congo who also want to make sure that the conflict ends, not for the interest of the people, but if they survive, right? If the Tshisekedi regime survives, with the US support, we are seeing the creation of a new Mobutu. Mobutu Sese Seko, a dictator who was in Congo for the past 32 years, supported by the United States. If people remember, when he did his coup in 1965, the US supported him to quell the rebellion, to get access to Congo's cobalt during the Cold War, during that time. So that is the framework. It's a repeat of history that people should, as we are analyzing the situation, they should always keep in mind. In everything that is happening, where are the Congolese people? What do Congolese people want? One, they want the end to the conflict. Two, they want to be able to choose their leader through an electoral process where that is not affected. Three, the ideals of Lumumba, they want to make sure that whenever we are extracting our mineral resources, before it benefits the Tesla of the world, the Apple of the world, that these mineral resources are actually honest, right? To build the roads, to build the hospital, to build the education system of the Congo so that the people of the Congo benefit and the African continent. If the framework is not placed for the Congolese, we'll continue to see Western nations being the firefighters, being actually the arsonists, and coming back as the firefighters to put down the fire when we know that it's the same force that exploded that's causing the death, and now are trying to be presented as the saviors of the Congo.
No, I think that's a really important point, and I think we've seen a lot of this, recently. I mean, we've seen a lot of the UK, Canada, other countries become more critical of Rwanda in this context, but in many ways it kind of seems like, kind of playing both sides against the middle in terms of how this is looking, especially when we look at what happened with the UN resolution where, and it seems to me, you tell me if you think I'm wrong, Kambale, but looking at that resolution, even though it's couched in a lot of criticism of all sides, including Rwanda, the actual solution seems to be very close to what Paul Kagame himself has been advocating for, which is this, quote unquote, direct negotiation between M23 and DRC. So some of it feels like it kind of looks one way, but the substance of it is maybe something of a diplomatic victory for Rwanda, at least, to some degree, at least.
To some degree, yes. But there are also three important, maybe a few important things that happen in the resolution. It was voted unanimously with 3 African nations who were part of the Security Council, right? That one gives a sense that regardless of some of the challenges of the resolution, that we do have Africans who are recognizing that not the M23, but the Rwandan Defense Forces are in the Congo. And that's a very important point to make, because in the press, we keep hearing M23. As I've always said, for all intents and purposes, the M23 is the Rwanda Defense Force. So when we see that element, right, why would you negotiate with the M23 when in your resolution, you are saying that the Rwandan Defense Forces are in DRC, right? So what's very important for people to really understand that we must have the Rwandan military out of the DRC. The second element is the sophisticated weaponry that the Rwandan military is using in the Congo comes from Western nations. Poland sold to Rwanda with European Union taxpayers' money, right? Because Europe gave Rwanda 20 million euros for military support. And then Rwanda used it to buy an anti-drone radar. Rwanda has sent surface-to-air missile and so on. So when we're seeing all the support that Rwanda is actually getting from the West, and then you're seeing the resolution, direct sanctions is not enough. We have to hold the corporations selling the weapons to them. It's not just Rwanda. Rwanda is a creation of Western power. So as we dilute the information to the M23, it becomes a Congolese problem. But if we put pressure on Western nations, and they have created the monster that we call the Rwandan government of Paul Kagame, we must put pressure on the European nation, the United States, to stop supporting dictators. So for people who are organizing around the Congo, to be clear, this is what's needed at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Well, go ahead, Eugene. No? Yes?
No, please, go ahead.
Okay, sorry. My internet was like hiccuping. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, great. Whew, that's relief. Kambale, I'm just curious if now that we're well into a new Trump administration and we've kind of like been experiencing for the last several months this sort of whiplash effect, and then I see the word deal being thrown around and what we were just talking about, like a mineral deal. I'm just curious if you think that that's going to play a role at all, especially the fact that Elon Musk is involved in that administration. Cobalt's very important to electronic cars. Do you think that's going to play a role in maybe them at some point focusing on Congo in a different way than past administrations have? Not in a good way, obviously. But are there concerns there?
I'm very concerned on the U.S. engagement in the Congo. As I said, they are trying to present the U.S. engagement in the Congo as the people who are going to put down the fire when they're actually the arsonists, right? And if you look at Elon Musk post on X last week, you will know that he actually posted on the Congo, right? He retweeted a pro-Republican influencer called Mario, I forgot his last name, who just interviewed Paul Kagame, and he made posts about the ADF. And the retweet of Musk was around the ADF, the Allied Democratic Forces, which means to me, right, if that's what Elon Musk is retweeting with the influence that he has, is that the US government may look at the situation in the Congo in the context of ISIS, right? The ADF, the US for many years have been saying that this is a ISIS link terrorist. And we know what that means, right? That will mean having, again, the so-called war on terror coming into the DRC, supporting an oppressive regime, and so on. But that is not what the Congo needs. That's one level. The second level is this proposal that the DRC is doing, the DRC government is trying to present to the US government, also has to have a historical background. Even though the DRC government is not as progressive as Lumumba, Patrice Lumumba, but something similar happened under Lumumba. Patrice Lumumba, as soon as he was elected the prime minister of the Congo, within weeks, there was an uprising backed by the Belgians, right, and supported the CIA to overthrow him. He flew into Washington. If you read his visit in Washington, he met US investors. There were US investors who were ready to actually fund the building of a dam. Right? You could see articles in the New York Times talking about how he met different US investors who made commitments. But that was in the position of Dwight Eisenhower, right? And he used that same strategy. He came to Washington and said, hey, I'm going to open my arms. Please help me stop this rebellion backed by Belgium. Dwight Eisenhower did not even meet him. State Department official actually met Patrice Lumumba. And in the end, we saw that Congo was left pretty much alone to figure out a solution. And he engaged with the USSR. The USSR, a member of the UN Security Council at the time, who saw an African nation in trouble and decided to engage. The action of the USSR committing to engage in quelling the rebellion is what the US used as a pretext to kill him, right? And collaborating with Belgium and others to kill Patrice Lumumba. When we're looking at the situation now, even the strategy, right? As I said, they're not the Patrice Lumumba, is the strategy to believe that you can go to the United States at the weak point to have a fair deal. But we have a solution on the African continent right now. We had Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, 3 countries with so-called jihadists supported by Western nations, allegedly, right? Causing insecurity in these nations. These nations did not go and make a deal with the United States. They relied on their people. The grassroots movement within these countries created a force so strong that the military leaders who are leading that have to listen to the population. So we know that today, not in the Lumumba time, that the solution is to rely on your people. So when you see the DRC government not doing that, then you know they never represented the Congolese people, that their fight is more to retain power. But rest assured, the Congolese have been denouncing that. There is a civil society group in the Katanga province that put out an open letter to Tshisekedi saying, we the Congolese people, one, we were not informed about this process. And we are against taking away the minerals. But in the press, no one is talking about that the Congolese civil society organizations have denounced this deal. Not one organization. It's a whole coalition of organizations working in the mining sector saying that the resources of the Congo should be for the Congolese people. Unfortunately, their voices are not heard. But I am so certain, as difficult as the situation in the Congo is today, many people around the world are hearing about the Free Congo movement. They're becoming much more aware that there has been a propaganda around the conflict in the Congo. Paul Kagame is being exposed more, Yoweri Museveni, and people are understanding more the challenge of the Congolese internally as they are ruled by people who are only following their own interest. So as we continue to educate people about the situation and reminding them to join the Congolese in the struggle, I am so sure that Congo will be free in our lifetime. And we just have to keep fighting for the people of the Congo to be free. And of course, every oppressed person in the world has to be free, including our people in Palestine as well.
Well, as always, Kambale Musavuli, an analyst with the Center for Research on the Congo-Kinshasa, thank you so much for some of your time here on the Freedom Side.
Thank you.